Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Haggerty 10 on the Twitter handle, as you can see, and I'm joined today by Kevin McKenna, as I always say when I'm joined by Kevin, the Celtic Daz podcast, isn't it, Kevin? You know, we were talking off air, and I was saying, yes, going all Celtic Daz. I've got the Gola Roy Rovers retro tracksuit, I've got the Maradona t-shirt, I've got the Swatch watch. So for those of a certain vintage, yes, you get where we're coming from on that. But there you go. Good morning, Kevin. Wonderful to have you again.
Morning, my pleasure. Good way to start the weekend, isn't it?
It always is. It always is. Now, we shall talk everything Celtic in a second, but just draw your attention to the top of the screen. And the Celtic Way has a new sponsor, and it's MPH Group. For all your plumbing, heating, kitchen and bathroom needs, go to MPH Group, and they are Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trade specialist covering all of mainland Scotland, and every service you opt for automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway, and you could win a 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico. And all the links to their social media sites, as well as the telephone number, are contained in the description of this morning briefing. And the morning briefing is brought to you by MPH Group, and we say thank you to them. And if you look along the strap line at the bottom, we ask you every day to subscribe to the channel, covering the club that you love, hopefully providing some top quality journalism in the process. Hit that subscribe button, guys. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Costs you £4 for 4 months, or why not take out a yearly subscription for £18? There we go. Nice one. Kevin, how are you? Are you refreshed after Wednesday night? Did you enjoy that? We'll talk about your response to Atletico Madrid first, before we get into Celtic heading back to Edinburgh after a 4-1 thumping of Hearts last week. See if they can do it all again this week against Hibernian at Easter Road. But first and foremost, get your thoughts on Atletico Madrid. I think they were one of the teams on your hate list, weren't they, alongside Rapid Vienna, et al., all that kind of stuff. But 2 each. Celtic, certainly for the first half, gave as good as they got, and they got their first points on the board. But it was a great point, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I do still have that that memory, which I've never really been healed of 1974. And so you're looking at that group, and at one point I was thinking, look, I don't care if we lose to every other team. I just want to beat them. I want to beat them, and I want to rub their noses in it. And I want to behave in I want Celtic players and their manager to behave in an unkind and unpleasant manner towards Diego Simeone and those players. After we've hammered them, but then you look at the game, and I have a confession here to make. I couldn't go to the game because I had a work event. But all during that first half, especially, I'm getting texts from people at the game or people watching the television saying, "This is amazing! Can't believe I'm seeing a Celtic team play like this against, a genuine top class European team with world class players." So of course I rush home, and I'm thinking, I've seen this before. I saw us play fantastically against Real Madrid in the first half last season. I saw us play very well against Lazio in large parts of the game against the likes of Shakhtar Donetsk and Leipzig last season. And then, we can't sustain it, or we get bad luck, or there's just a misjudgment that gets punished, whereas we don't adequately punish other clubs' misjudgments in these games. But I've got to say, when, I looked over that first half, and I've seen it 2 or 3 times since, actually. And, we were, that's the best I've seen a Celtic team play at that level for a sustained amount of time. And I know you and I were chatting prior to this, and you were saying that it kind of hallmarks of the Martinelli era. Up to a point, I agree with you, but it's not really the same, because because that's now half a generation ago, and the top clubs in the top leagues have pulled away further. The gap between the rest, the simply very good and the super good, is much greater because of the concentration of wealth.
Sure.
And so being able to, the task of competing against those 10 to 12 clubs that come from those top 4 leagues each year or two gets harder and harder just to stay with them for large parts of the game, because they've got such an accumulation of the best players available, because they've got the money, and it means they can sustain that level of performance much more intensely for the entire 90 minutes, so that no matter how well you're playing, the ability to maintain that intensity, the intensity required to live with them for 90 minutes each year, becomes harder and harder. And I've got my own reason, my own theories why that happens, which is, at the risk of boring you, I would give you my Celtic Daz chat. You go back to the 60s and the 70s and the clubs that won European Cups, European Cup Winners' Cups, UEFA Cups, the old Fair City Cups. Even like Inter Milan, Real Madrid, Benfica in the early 60s, who were hoovering up all the European Cups, they would have a mixture of 2 or 3 genuinely world-class players, 4 or 5 very, very good, very technically gifted players, and maybe 2 or 3 hod carriers, but who could play in a system, because it was a team game that could still make a contribution, and therefore the managers who were able to work with those disparate talents at different levels with a limited budget and get the best out of them, they were proper, scientific, gifted managers, gifted at reading players, getting the best out of them according to their personalities, etc., etc. And sadly now that's not the case, because there are only top clubs in 4 leagues in Europe who can afford, who have got such an accumulation of money that they can say, no, we're not going to have any ordinary players, bread and butter players, or even merely very good players. We can afford to have Galacticos in every position and have them covered by Galacticos. So we'll never know just how good a manager Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola is. I know they're good managers because there's others, who work with similar talents. But I'd just love to see them manage a club which has a more equal, a more diverse range of talents, and it's not based purely on capitalism, because European football at its top level now has become the last bastion of pure capitalism. And those of us who define ourselves as socialists, we're all part of it. We're quite happy to bow down to this. We know it, and we don't ask questions. And of course, Celtic are like that in Scotland. Because we then have 6 games or so against these top clubs, and Celtic are playing at a different level now from the rest of Scotland, and I mean the rest of Scotland. So even our limited exposure to these top clubs means that when we come to play the likes of Hearts and Hibs, Rangers even, we're playing at a different level. Then we've got almost like an unfair advantage, because they're not playing at that level, and so we can't really complain, because we do that in a smaller pond in Scotland, and we take advantage of this extreme football capitalism to suit us in Scotland. Derek, with that all much.
When they ripped up the old European Cup template and gave it the Champions League, that was sacrificed on the altar of cash, Kevin, and everybody knew it was coming. It was going to be dominated by the rich and the super clubs, and that's the way it's proved to be. But what delighted me most on, as you say, the other night on Wednesday, was the fact that, and the manager alluded to it as well, at least for that first half and parts of the second. But Celtic played with a tempo and a speed and an accuracy, as you say, it's not been seen at Celtic Park for a long time. I was talking about in terms of the way they were so competitive in Martin O'Neill's era in every game. Even Martin O'Neill said it himself in the studio at half-time. He said it reminded him of the time when they beat Juventus and when they beat Lyon 2-0 at Celtic Park, and obviously Juventus 4-3. And I was thinking in that sense, but I get exactly what you're saying as well, and that is that you are kind of victims of your own success in your league, but you are not getting tested to that level every week, as you say. It's nobody's fault, but I think certainly this season's the first time in 3 games where I've noticed progression in every game. Thought they were terrific for a spell in Feyenoord, just lost it either side of the interval. They were better than Feyenoord in the Lazio game, that better display. Were mugged at the end, could have gone their way with a VAR shout as well. And then another vast improvement against Atletico Madrid to get their first point. So I think everybody's seen the kind of green shoots of recovery for Celtic in the European stage. And I think that's what's pleased the Celtic supporters most, because that's what they crave at that level, isn't it? They want to be competitive and they want to see improvement. And from Feyenoord, Lazio to Atletico Madrid, I'm seeing a Celtic team progressing and improving under Brendan Rodgers. And if the Celtic board back him, then I'm excited to see where that can take us. It might not happen this season in Europe, but it could happen in the future.
Well, yeah. Again, up to a point. What I liked in that first half on Wednesday night, and we saw traces of it against Lazio and against Real Madrid last season, but especially in Wednesday night, is the amount of players now we have who are happy now to take the ball with their back. They're back to the opposition goal, who are under pressure. They're taking it, and they're much more confident in their ability to keep it and move it to their colleagues under pressure.
Yeah,
and that had always been the big difference between Scottish teams or clubs from unfancied leagues against these types of clubs, and we're progressing at that, game by game, as you said, season by season. However, you're hoping that the board backs Brendan in January or the next 2 transfer windows, but it doesn't. I'm not really sure it's as simple as that, because I saw that people were saying, well, our limitations on the bench were exposed. They can bring on 5 players who are game changers, or who can maintain that intensity, that level of performance. I think we brought on 3, and people were looking at the bench and saying, well, we just didn't really have the strength there. Others were saying that if we had Giakoumakis, we could have brought him on. He'd have been good in that last 20 minutes. Yeah, I agree with that, but again, only up to a point. Unlike Atletico or Chelsea or Manchester City or Real Madrid, Liverpool, Bayern Munich, we don't have the resources to be paying somebody 30, 35 grand a year and say, you know what, you're probably only going to get about a dozen starts. You can come off the bench with half an hour to go and you'll still be making a difference and keep them happy. We can't do that. The reason why Giakoumakis left was because he wasn't getting started, because he's still quite young. He knows what his ability is, but we weren't able to, nor would it be a good and a wise use of our resources to be paying somebody like him 30, 35 grand a week and only using him 10 times. And what is a 23, 24-year-old potentially world-class player? How can we keep that guy happy in the bench? So, you can say that's one half of the equation. Let's hope the board back Brendan, but but how many players are we going to be able to attract and say you might only get 10 games?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, if you want to do that and pay them 50 grand a week, that helps them get over sitting in the bench, but we're not going to do that, are we?
No, of course. I'm just saying in the kind of round the sense that if they do back Brendan, then they can get more players in and be as competitive as that and possibly win more than they lose. I think that's what Celtic fans crave desperately, don't they? To be a competitive team and claim a scalp, here and there, because they know, as you say, that gulf, financial gulf and class of player still exists and will exist, especially with Celtic, and when you're comparing them to the likes of Atletico Madrid. But I was just encouraged a lot the other night, Kevin, that moving forward, and as I say, it might not happen in this year's European arena, but certainly if Celtic can win the title again and go back in, you end up playing 8 games, could be 10 games, depending on where you finish. And with a couple of decent transfer windows, you can be even more competitive. You can play that style of football and see where it takes you.
Yeah, I also take a bit of encouragement from the last time we played Lazio a few years ago, a double header with them.
Yeah.
And Lazio that season were they were 3rd or 4th in Serie A when we took them on, and we went to their stadium, and we competed well with them over the entire game, and there were some passages of play where we played some stunning football, concluding, of course, with Cham's amazing winner at the end. So I'm having been a bit pessimistic, a bit realistic over the last 10 minutes. I don't see why we can't go to Rome and
do it again,
and not at least be looking for a win. And again, I don't see why we can't go to Madrid and be looking for at least a draw. And given the way that we played against Atletico the other night, if Celtic were to somehow win in Madrid in a couple of weeks' time, it's not going to be the biggest surprise. And the Atletico players will know that.
I think the confidence boost the guys would have got from playing at that level the way they did and getting that point, shows them that they do belong in that arena, and they can transfer that kind of imperious domestic forum into that arena and compete against a team of that stature and quality, and they can get results. I think that's what Celtic needed. They just needed to get a result and show that they do belong. They're in there in merit, and they're in there mixing it with the big boys. And we get all that, and we get all the finance arguments and the quality of player argument. We get all that, but these guys are just as good as well when they put their mind to it. And the 2 goals that Celtic scored the other night were class, absolute class. And the first one in particular is a stunning goal. It's one of the best goals, European goals you'll see all week.
The goal of the night, yeah.
So it's no surprise that it's up for an award. Goal of the European goal of the week or whatever it's called. But I just look at that, the execution of that against a team who are quite stubborn and hard to break down. Celtic carved them open. Absolutely carved them open.
This has been, over the last few years, over the last 3 seasons, including this season, the biggest sign of progress, or the most pleasing aspect of how we played at this level is that if you remember under Gordon Strachan, Neil Lennon, going back to 2005, 2006, when we played these super teams like Manchester United, as they were then, Barcelona, Bayern Munich to a certain extent, we were you knew you were in for an ordeal where you'd be getting 20 to 25% of possession. I saw both our games against Barcelona that season when we beat them at Parkhead in 2012. I went to the Nou Camp and saw them, and I had a seat right near, right down at pitch level. I was there at Parkhead a few weeks later, and at the Nou Camp, it was, I can't describe it, but you're watching, okay, I think we opened the scoring that night, but for the last half an hour, you could count the touches that Celtic actually got collectively on both hands, and you're watching Iniesta and you're watching Xavi, and you're watching Messi just attacking Celtic down the right in their one touch, and I'm watching Mikael Lustig, right, trying to deal with this, which he did admirably until we lost the winner with 2 minutes to go, but it was not healthy. It's not healthy for your constitution or your heart watching that. Likewise, Manchester United at Parkhead, where we've got Nakamura's world-class free kick, but they've got 75-80% of the possession, and we sneak a win now and again or a point, but it's far more enjoyable watching us now competing well, playing that sort of football against clubs, rather than okay, there's a debate to be had, right? So would we rather maybe pick up a couple of wins with a backs to the wall performance, where we're getting 20% of possession, but we're still going out? So we've picked up 2 wins, but we're still going out the competition, or do we prefer having played large patches of these games against these world-class teams where we've outplayed them by playing beautiful, inventive football, and maybe just getting a draw, and maybe at the end of the 6-game campaign we've only got 2 points or 3 points. Last season it was like 2 points, and then there's the laziness of our print colleagues who write about football, who just they don't have the nuance, they don't have the ability to kind of drill down. I was listening to Radio Scotland. It was print and broadcast. I'm listening to Radio Scotland immediately after the game, and all they could bang on about was, another year Celtic haven't won a Champions League game at this level. No attempt to analyse it, because they just don't have the knowledge. They don't have the nuance to kind of set it in its proper context. It's just a kind of an easy statement that you reach for, and the same goes with some of the football writers who don't have that either. And we can sometimes get sucked into that. We haven't won a Champions League game at home for 10 years. But Celtic have progressed incredibly simply by bridging the gap in the way that we normally play football, that we normally have to play football, playing in a league like Scotland. And then when we take the field once or twice every year against Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Bayern Munich, Leipzig, top clubs from Serie A, that's the most pleasing aspect of this.
It's the most pleasing aspect for me that this season, in terms of the European performances, I'm witnessing progress, and they're making it. I think a win at this level is coming sooner rather than later. It could well come in the next 3 matches, and like you, I wouldn't be surprised to see them go to Madrid and win, and go to Rome and win, and even win at Celtic Park against Feyenoord. So, but I'm happy at the way the team's shaping up in Europe now. I've seen definite progression in those 3 games, those 3 performances, and that's what pleases me greatly, Kevin, about it. And the fact, as you say, that they have shown that they can compete, and it is everybody's well aware of the statistics, aren't they, about the decade-long wait for a Champions League win. We get all that, but as you say, there are subtle nuances about that, and if you want to drill down into it, there are extenuating circumstances. But I think Brendan Rodgers himself was delighted with the progress that Celtic have made from the Feyenoord game to the other night, he labelled it an outstanding performance, and it was for most part. And Diego Simeone made the changes. We talk about elite level managers. He made changes to affect that game, and they did affect the game. Llorente coming on and providing the assist for Morata to score the equaliser. So he knew he was in a game, and he had to adapt, and that's what elite level managers do. And also, Brendan Rodgers decided to make a change as well because he wanted to protect the point that he had.
Yeah.
Because Celtic could easily have lost that game, because I think Atletico Madrid showed their class in the second half, came at us. But progress for me was the fact that Celtic withstood that as well.
Yeah, actually, when I was watching it back, Atletico, when they had that period of dominance and for a significant part of the second half, you can't really look back and look at a glut of outstanding chances.
Yeah.
And I hear, I've been a bit critical of Greg Taylor on a couple of occasions this season, especially at the start of the season. I think he's stabilised a bit. But again, I saw him getting some criticism for allowing the cross that come in for their second goal. But there's another way of looking at it. It wasn't a particularly threatening position that the cross was coming in from. It was just a brilliant cross.
Yeah.
And it was a great finish.
Yeah.
Because they're an excellent team.
Because they've got quality players that can do that at any given time.
Who can fashion brilliant, inch-perfect crosses from seemingly safe positions in the park and have them finished like that from somebody who's not had a sniff for the rest of the night. That's what they do.
Yeah, correct. Now, we shall move on from Wednesday and we'll talk about Saturday, Kevin, the chance for Celtic to go 10 points clear of Rangers before Rangers play on Sunday. Returning to Edinburgh after last week's stroll at Tynecastle, 4-1, and I went on record in this pod and said that I thought the game was as good as over after Matt O'Reilly's brilliant finish from Palmer's even better assist. Just there was something that was real world class about that goal, and I'll tell you why. Because the chip forward is just dinked to perfection. But I've spoken about it before. It's Matt O'Reilly running on, and he's watching the ball, and he does a quick second glance to where the goalkeeper is, and he knows as soon as that ball drops, he's burying it in that bottom corner where the goalkeeper can't get it. And I was speaking to one of my friends last night. I said, the actual movement of O'Reilly watching the ball reminded me of Zidane at Hampden when he's watching the ball coming down for the volley. Yeah. It was all about getting the technique right, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And my goodness, he did it. And I thought Celtic from that moment on just set the tone and obliterated Hearts.
And it's about getting the technique right. But it's also, you have to have the technique.
Correct.
Because, and O'Reilly, my God, what technique he has. Because we've seen other players at both Celtic and other clubs who know what has to be done. They can read the game. They're intelligent in-game management, as the millennials might call it. But so they'll be able to read what is required. They'll know what is required, but they simply, God bless them, not have that touch. They won't be blessed with that natural deftness of touch to be able to do it as required. Matt O'Reilly does.
Yeah.
And we're getting the benefit. And I hope we get the rest of this season and another season out of him.
Love that. I would love that.
Again, that's just very slightly going back to the European thing. That's another handicap that top clubs from leagues such as ours, Holland, Belgium, Portugal, if you like. We have these players, and we're talking about improving year on year, but we kind of also know that we want to improve year on year, but we also know that within a year or 2 years, 2 or 3 of those players who allow us, who have allowed us to make that progress might not be there, and therefore we've got that extra challenge of spotting somebody of similar ability who wants to come here and who can fit in quickly. But anyway, back to Matt O'Reilly, Tynecastle. Yeah, beating Hearts 4-1 at Tynecastle, playing like that, where there's no jeopardy, is lovely to see. And Hibs over the years, we've played better at Easter Road, or we've been more comfortable more often at Easter Road than we have been at Tynecastle.
Look, here's the thing as well. I'm sure somebody will correct me in the comment section, but I don't think Brendan Rodgers has won at Easter Road as a manager. That's a startling statistic, isn't it?
I know that. So I was there. Possibly would have been his last game when Neil Lennon was the manager at Hibs, and we needed to win. I mean, the league was more or less a foregone conclusion, but we needed to win or get a point to take, to make it official. But Hibs scalped us 2-1. Then not long after that, the following season, Brendan goes and then comes Neil. So you might be right, but I couldn't confirm that one way or the other. Which I suppose just blows my point out the water, doesn't it?
No,
but we've been comfortable more often at Easter Road.
I wasn't saying it for that reason. I was just something that came to the top of my head, and I just thought, I'm sure Brendan Rodgers, it's a place where he hasn't won, which is just strange, considering they had the invincible team and just the way the team played under Brendan Rodgers in general. But, so there's always that caveat that Celtic are playing well.
We must have beaten them. We must have beaten them in the first season where we went. I mean, it wasn't just unbeaten. We had a number of successive.
Well, I think Patrick's saying that they were in Division 1 for 2 seasons as well when he was there. So, yeah.
Right.
So I think he's only played them. I mean, I'm not saying he's played them like 8 or 10 times. I think he's only played them a few times. But, yeah, so that's obviously a contributory factor. But, so as much as Celtic are playing some magnificent stuff domestically, these stats that are thrown up, not everything's a foregone conclusion. But I think I'm looking at tomorrow, and you can't see anything other than a Celtic victory because of the way they're playing. And I know Hatate is out injured, but Bernardo came in the other night and he did really well. And you could see him slotting in there. You could see him slotting in there and doing a job. Or you could see Iwata coming in, because Iwata came on for Hatate at Tynecastle, scored his first goal, did really well. And, everything seems to be, in that sense, seamless. So you're hoping that they can go to Edinburgh the second time in a fortnight and register another good result. And you're quite confident in that. But these caveats are thrown up, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm quite confident. Apart from anything else, the surface at Easter Road is different class.
Yes,
it is
a good pitch. It always has been.
So I've very rarely gone to Easter Road and seen their pitch looking anything but immaculate, and that's in all conditions. So, yeah, there's no reason. Celtic really ought to win and win comfortably, but, Hibs, big team, passionate support who feel about their club the way we do about ours, and for the same reasons. 1875 they were founded. They're always there. Yes. And in certain occasions, they whip up a frenzy. And if there are passages of play, and I've seen this several times with Hibs teams over the years, they really do rouse them. I have seen Hibs players be visibly inspired by the backing, and it's they're right on top of you. And Hibs have made a great stadium. They've rebuilt something really good. They've maintained the old atmosphere of Easter Road, and it's still a good place to play and watch football. So, yeah, you don't want to be disrespectful to Hibs on their day with that support. If we're not completely at the races, we can be mugged.
Incentives there, though, Kevin. Go 10 ahead, put that pendulum back to Rangers. Yeah. And also, it's another it's another away game ticked off the calendar, isn't it?
Well, it's that
Celtic
first quarter, because you're looking at that first quarter,
Yeah.
the way the fixtures were thrown out, and the clubs that we were required to play, Rangers, Motherwell, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, and then that plastic pitch at Livingston. And if you're a Rangers fan looking at that, you're thinking, we've got a chance here of building some momentum going into the second quarter, which can be important, of course.
Sure.
And so we beat Hibs. We go into the second quarter having played arguably the clubs that you would expect to be in the top 6 at the end of the season, played them all away from home. And for the rest of the season, we've got 3 games against Rangers, 2 of which are at Parkhead. If I was a Rangers fan, I'd be very, very worried.
Yeah, I think if Celtic can win tomorrow, that's another one, as I say, ticked off. And as you say, it's that glut of fixtures, especially the away fixtures in the first quarter. You said you always thought, could they win them all? They're 90 minutes away from doing that at Easter Road, and they're playing some wonderful stuff. And you do kick yourself about the St Johnstone game at home, don't you?
I know.
The 0-0 game, you start to get greedy on it, but that's how easy it can happen.
Well, I remember a couple of
wonderful day, when you go
2-3 seasons ago with Giacomas's penalty miss. Giacomas's penalty miss against Livingston. I think we threw away a couple of points against Dundee United at Parkhead. I remember there. It can happen.
Yeah,
it can happen.
Yeah, but I just trust this group of players. I trust the manager to whatever team he picks. Will get out and do the job. It was wonderful to see Iwata get on the score sheet. It was wonderful to see the reaction to Iwata getting on the score sheet last week. And Matt O'Reilly's goal, spoken about, a thing of beauty. Kyogo back in the old routine. That's 2-2. And, lots of things are pleasing you now, certainly domestically. Liam Scales is just the ultimate Cinderella story, isn't it? Just continues to go from strength to strength.
How good was he the other night?
Yeah, I mean, he is forcing the manager's hand. He's saying to the manager, I've got this yellow jersey, nobody's getting it until you turn around and say, Liam, I'm going to rest you, rotate you, or whatever. But I think the Celtic fans would be up in arms if Liam Scales was taking out the team.
Yeah, I agree. It's good to see. It's good for other young players. And it's important that he stays in the team while he's playing well, because other players, to maintain squad harmony, other players have to know that the manager's loyal and that he's fair and he'll treat them fairly.
Yeah.
And so far, so good. It's great.
I also think as well, you see how good he was the other night, but it's in terms of his development and his education, Kevin, he is learning on the job, and he is learning because he's taking everything on board and he's playing out his skin, and he's shown to the manager, and I said that after at Ibrox, he's shown to the manager that he can be a trusted lieutenant, and the manager is now trusting him and saying, I don't have trust issues with you anymore, Liam, just do what you're doing.
Look at his passing range. He's taking the ball, bringing it down and playing 20, 25-yard passes in busy channels. These aren't just, there's somebody in the acres of space, I can just move it side and look good. This is, arrowing forward where it's got to still elude 2 or 3 members of the opposition, especially, top players that Atletico have. So long may it continue. And it's great for us when we're playing hard games in Scotland, when we're up against it, when we're maybe not at the races, when the opposition does have a spell of pressure, that we've now got that. It's never going to be just clear the ball, win the first header, clear it into the stand, clear it over the halfway line. It's about, the best way to relieve the pressure is to take the ball and pass it to one of your own players in a forward position and start a counter-attack.
Now, Hibs lost 4-0 to Rangers last week, Kevin, but I expect a different Hibs tomorrow to come at Celtic a bit and spring from the traps and see if they can get some joy. So Celtic will need to be be certainly wary of that. But again, as you said, you talked about the surface. I think the surface could be conducive to Celtic getting lots of joy as well. They have players all over the pitch now that can, excuse me, can hurt opposition teams, and that's what pleased me greatly last week. That there was 4 different scorers, wasn't there? And I loved that. I love when Celtic rattle up a few goals and it's different scorers.
Again, it was the play around those goals.
Yeah.
Again, in the press, there was much was made of how weak or how supine Hearts were, and insipid. It's not what you expect from a Hearts team playing at Tynecastle. But actually, the quality of football Celtic were playing. I know that Naismith stupidly said after the game all the goals were preventable. Come on, let's have a look at them. All the goals were started because of either exquisite bits of technical skill or because of the movement and the speed of thought on the edge of the penalty area, like for the second goal. And there's nothing Hearts could have done. No, it's not that anybody was switching off. It's not that somebody had lost possession. It's not that they'd made a clumsy foul. It's just that Celtic speed of movement or just kind of little instances of class had undone them, and that's okay.
You can't defend against the goals that Celtic scored last week.
It was like the goal we lost against Atletico. Yeah. You could point the finger at Taylor, but he's got 2 players to contend with, and actually it was just an exquisite cross and an exquisite finish by exquisite players. Yeah.
And I think, and it's not overconfidence or arrogance, Kevin, but I think Celtic are going to Edinburgh tomorrow, knowing full well that if they play to their capabilities, they will beat Hibs. That's the eventuality. That's what happened.
Who is it Rangers have got on Sunday?
I don't know. I don't actually know.
Anyway, we've said it.
I'll find out for you. I'll just look that up. Give me a second. I'm too busy wrapped up in Celtic stuff, Kevin. I shall look for you. Give me a second. Rangers have got Hearts at Ibrox.
That's right. Yeah. Well,
And so just to kind of a reverse of the fixtures from last week in terms of the opposition. But yeah, I mean, I think last week was Celtic's best domestic performance of the season. That was followed up by, originally I thought the Kilmarnock performance was their best domestic performance. They upped that at Tynecastle.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they up it again against Hibs, and it just keeps progressively getting better. And it was no surprise in midweek to see Celtic put in their best European performance of the season. So I'm just hoping that feel-good factor, which is clearly coursing through the players, the manager and the team, continues in Edinburgh tomorrow. And I don't see any reason why that can't. Allowing for Rio Hatate being injured, which is a real shame. And we'll find the extent of the damage of that today, I'm sure, when Brendan addresses the media. But again, we look at it and you've got players that can come in there and do a job. Iwata, Bernardo. So as much as that offsets the fact that Hatate is out the team, you don't see it as such a great help. Yeah.
It's great to see Bernardo play well at that level and slot in under heavy pressure. That's good. That gladdened my heart. Also, I'm looking, there isn't any of these daft midweek breaks, weekend breaks for the international.
I think there's another one in November, isn't there?
Christmas, is there?
I think there's another one in November. That's the last round of fixtures, isn't it? I believe. Yeah, I'm sure there's one in November. But obviously Celtic play St Mirren midweek as well before they go to Dingwall the following weekend. So it's a real glut of away fixtures I've had. You never been to Dingwall?
Dingwall. Every season comes upon us, and I'm like, I want to go up there.
great.
Maybe just do a weekend.
Wonderful place, wonderful
it looks
people.
like a great wee
Yeah.
park and stadium.
Yeah, it's a great venue. I
So
love to go.
I need to get up. I do need to get up.
Yeah, it's a good place to go, and the people treat you well. They're excellent up there. But yeah, I think it's for the time being and for the last while, it's been very, very positive in terms of Celtic, isn't it? And as much as you don't want to be blasé and overconfident, but you trust this group of players to deliver, certainly domestically, don't you?
Yeah, there's no reason why we shouldn't be making it 3 in a row. And I mean, look, again, you don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, no matter who they are, because you still have to beat what's put in front of you. There's a lot of good professionals around in Scotland. You don't want to take anything for granted, but come on. We're playing at a different level than every other club. And I include Rangers in that. I saw their game yesterday evening. And they're not playing at the same level as us. That's a consequence of not playing in the Champions League, not being exposed to that. But we're playing an elite level of football that neither Rangers or anyone else can touch, and we've come through. I mean, another aspect of this is that, as well as that difficult first quarter with those away games, we also had a pretty horrendous injury list.
Yeah.
We've negotiated these 6 games out of 11 away from home against the league's best sides, and for 3 or 4 of those games, we didn't even have our second or third choice centre halves, and we had 2 or 3 of our most influential players out. So, happy days.
The great thing for me is that I think certainly domestically as well, Brendan's trying to kind of, ratchet up a notch and play with that intensity that they would play in a European game. And I saw it myself last week against Hearts. They kept going. They weren't just content when they went to 2-0 and think that because that was a game over, no, take your foot off the gas.
That used to drive me nuts.
Yeah.
It used to drive me nuts, some games, especially at Parkhead, 2 or 3 up, 30 minutes to go, and you're like, okay, entertaining. I want more goals. I don't care.
So
and you'd see them, passing about side to side. We're not that good that we can afford just to keep doing that.
And that's what I'm enjoying about Celtic just now. I think, Brendan Rodgers always talks about that intensity and educate. He used a great phrase, educated pressures, the other night, So, and I like that, I just kind of, you know exactly what he means, but I like that because you can see it for yourself. You're watching a team who are now dancing to the beat of the manager's drum, and he's telling them, guys, everything has to be intense. It has to be a tempo, has to be a speed, it has to be a level where when you transition into Europe, you're doing the same things. It becomes automatic. And I'm watching that at Celtic at the minute. I'm watching real progress, both domestically and in Europe, because they have, since Ibrox, their performances have got gradually better. And the Kilmarnock game, they were excellent. Wasn't reflective in the scoreline. Could have been a hell of a lot more. Last week, it was reflective in the scoreline. Could also have been more. But I'm seeing a gradual notch up in performances. And then obviously when they went in against Atleti, that same kind of template and model that they're doing, they're showing, it's no surprise they got a result against Atletico Madrid because they're doing everything that they're kind of doing at training and in domestic matches in preparation for taking that step up. And that's what I'm enjoying about Celtic at the minute, Kevin.
So, Hatati's injury. So we'll know how many weeks roughly he's going to be out later today.
We'll know today. I think it's hamstring, wasn't it? But they were saying so they can pick any number of weeks and depending on the seriousness of it. But I get back to it. I like the look of Iwata when he came on last week, and I like the look of Bernardo in midweek. So if either or of those either or are going to have to slot in against Hibernian, I have no qualms about that. I'm quite assured in that they can still produce.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then we've got the other thing I was thinking of was, so we're sitting on 116, 117 trophies.
Yes,
we win a double. So either the end of this season or early next season. This is so sad, and Celtic die, shouldn't it?
that's what you're here for.
We could have the label of most successful football club in the world.
I knew you were going to say that. I think we'll.
I hope I hope we don't proclaim it, because it's.
I don't think they will they? To be honest,
no, we wouldn't do that, would we?
I think there would be
for a few weeks just to kind of,
I think there would be a kind of smiling and nodding to your, to your fellow supporters, and that I wouldn't say smug, but contentedness about it. I think it'd be the you would just be like, one of them, that kind of thing. I don't think Celtic would ever claim to that title, would they, or want to sort of say that, but it's growing ever closer, isn't it? I think that total will be surpassed pretty soon, and I think Celtic supporters will enjoy that, won't they? They'll enjoy that moment if and when it arrives.
I had to. I saw Aberdeen the other night, last night, and I'm talking about we're playing at a different level because we're getting exposed to these teams, but I've seen all of Aberdeen's performances this season, and he's getting a tune out of them at a decent level where they're trying to play football in a sophisticated manner without being backs to the wall.
Yeah,
and I mean, what was that all about?
They were the victims of a dreadful decision last night. Absolute shocker of a decision last night. To be fair to them, but yeah, I can't for the life of me understand why VAR didn't intervene in that. It's a blatant penalty, but yeah.
Apparently they didn't have it.
No,
but I suppose the overall point is that when we go to Pittodrie, if Barry Robson's getting them to play like that, with a bit of bravery, a bit of enterprise, our visits to Pittodrie, and there were elements of it, just parts of the game earlier in the season at Pittodrie. Yeah. But that's going to become an exciting occasion again. I think that they've got some good players, Yeah,
it all goes well because it tests your mettle as well. So I'm all for that. That's nearly 54 minutes, Kevin. Time flies and all that, as they say. Before we go, I'll get a prediction, a scoreline prediction for you for Easter Road, if you'd be so bold as to give us.
I'll go on the conservative side and say Hibs 0, Celtic 2.
Hibs 0, Celtic 2. Jerry Smith coming in and saying 6-0 the boys. Welcome back, Kevin. Always great to see you. Hazel Finn saying picking up face 4-1 to Celtic. So Raymond Haddon being a bit pragmatic as well. Any win will do. He's saying Alistair Ross 3-0. But I think you'll agree, ladies and gentlemen, I usually flick a lot of comments up and I try, but whenever Kevin's on, I just get kind of lost in the conversation. And
you just get lost with the both irrelevant reminiscences.
Yes, basically. Yes, that limp down amnesia lane. It used to be a stroll down memory lane, but it's now a limp down amnesia lane, as they say. But yeah, Maestro saying 5-1 to Celtic. Ozzy saying love your summer, Kev. But you know what it's like. We just enjoy the chat and excuse me, we hope that you guys do as well. And I can't thank you enough, Kevin, as ever, for coming on. It's 5 minutes short of there, but it's a great way to ease yourself into a week.
Ease us gently into the weekend.
Yeah, a weekend of Jarvis Cocker, as they say, you know what I mean? That's soccer for anybody out there. It's never soccer, it's always football, isn't it? But hey, you know what it's like. Hazel Finn, well done, Tony and Kev. Great to watch that. That's very kind. You're always very kind. And they're always a knowledgeable bunch, Kevin, on the Celtic Way comment section. So they get the references, even though we might be Celtic dads. They get them. They know their stuff. So all
totally
good. 5-0 Edward Moore, he's saying magic. But yeah, Maestro 95, good chat, Celtic dads. I'll take that any day of the week. I don't mind that at all, especially when I've got a man like Kevin beside me as well. Stephen Donoghue, great show, lads. Thank you so much. Just before we go, we say thank you to MPH Group for all your plumbing, heating, kitchen and bathroom needs. The morning briefing is brought to you by MPH Group, and they are Scotland's award-winning family-run, all-trade specialists covering all of mainland Scotland. And every service you opt for automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway, and you could win a 7-night stay at the luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico. And all the links to their social media sites, as well as a telephone number, are in the description of this morning briefing. And we say thank you to MPH Group for their sponsorship of the Celtic Way morning briefing. All that's left for me to say is thank you, Kevin. Another masterclass.
My pleasure.
Masterclass in podcastery. Is that a word, podcastery? It is now. But there you go. Kevin's a legend. You too, Tony. It's a compliment in there somewhere, isn't it? My ball. Love it when you two are on. Thanks very much. Les Watts, it's great to see people of mine. I love all this. It's brilliant, isn't it? And that's the thing. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We love all that. But Kevin, thank you so much. Guys, it's always result dependent. I say it every weekend. Have a wonderful weekend. Myself and Ryan will be on to dissect Hibs versus Celtic tomorrow, pre-match and after-match, and all the usual stuff, the instant reaction and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you tune into the website as well, log on. But Kevin, thanks a lot. Really enjoyed that. Always do. And guys, if you enjoyed today, I'm sure you will have, we ask you to subscribe to the Celtic Way website and help us provide top quality journalism, covering the club you love. £4 for 4 months for access to everything we write on the website, or £18 for a yearly subscription. And you log on, hit that button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Kevin, thank you so much. I know you're a busy man, and I always appreciate you coming on whenever you do and chatting everything. What did I say, Kevin? Chatting everything, leather belts, fuzzy felts, and the Marjorie Prips. You can't beat it.
I think I might have used that this week.
You're allowed. That's a compliment to me.
I think
chapeau, as they say.
I think I might have used that with Graham Spears. I think I messaged Graham Spears, wind him up about the old Marjorie Proops.
Marvellous. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Take care. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.